Good morning and Shana Tova, a good new year. I want to take just a moment to welcome those of you who are joining us online for our services, which are being streamed from the sanctuary at Congregation Beth Adam in Cincinnati. As you probably know, there could be 3 different places where you're seeing this. Beth Adam's website, our Facebook page, or the Our Jewish Community Facebook page. On all 3 of those, you are able to chat with one another. I want to remind you to please be respectful of one another in the chat. We are an inclusive and welcoming environment, or strive to be, and we want to continue that online as well as in person. If our approach to Judaism does not speak to you, or our services don't speak to you, that's okay. We hope they're meaningful and make you think and feel and experience Rosh Hashanah in a meaningful way. But if they are not, that's okay. Feel free to leave our online services and to find a different stream service that speaks to you. We ask that you do that quietly and respectfully so that those who are enjoying the service can remain focused and a part of it. If you don't want to read the chat and want to immerse yourself in the service, if you make the service image full screen, that will block the chat so that you don't have to read it. A quick note on technical issues. We are monitoring the services online from each of those platforms. So if you think it's our issue, it is likely yours unless we let you know that it's on our side. We'll do our best to fix anything that's ours, but if it's not, please do what you can. One possibility is that the high def broadcast that we do is too much for your computer, and you can change that in your settings. Also, you can turn up your sound if you're having trouble. We have ours in the mid-range for you, but you can change it, of course, on your own devices. Something you can do for us if you like what you're experiencing, if you're enjoying our services, please let people know on your social media that you're enjoying streaming services with Congregation Beth Adam, and post and share about it if you're willing to. You can also choose to make a donation. If you do that, you can do that through our website, bethadam.org, and you'll find a place on the homepage to make a donation. If you've joined us before, it's the same book as in the past. You don't need a new copy. And we will post this service afterwards for those who you might want to share with who are in different time zones. We appreciate you being here, and we welcome you to our space through your computers. And we will begin the service shortly. Thank you. Shana Tova. A good year. Thank you, Michelle. And welcome, everybody, for our morning service, Shana Tova, a good year. I want to very quickly make sure that our sound is corrected. If you're in the back, are you able to hear? Excellent. We had an issue with our speakers off last night, so I do understand that folks in the back weren't hearing. We're glad it's corrected now, and please let us know if it becomes a problem, but we should be good moving forward. Quick reminder to turn cell phones off. It's better for you, and it's better for those around you. We begin this morning with a kavanah, with an intention that's adapted from the words of Michael Adam Latz. For those who say good riddance to 5784, and those who weep because endings are too much to bear and beginnings too frightening to encounter. For those ready to crack open their hearts and to roll up their sleeves to end needless suffering. And for those exhausted because it seems we're fighting the same damn battles all over again. For those who eagerly dip apples into honey and hear words of Torah inspire us into being our most holy selves. And for those who hope to hear the rabbis say something inspiring and authentic, heartfelt and relevant. For those dreading the sermon about Israel, and for those demanding the sermon about Israel, and for those who found the music soaring, and for those who experienced the liturgy wanting. For those who are certain why they show up and love the opportunity to reflect and feel history in their guts as we connect with our tradition. And for those who aren't at all certain why on earth they've showed up, but believe somewhere in the veins where blood flows to the heart and to the head that they need to show up for some cosmological, unexplainable reason. For each of us, for all of us, Shana Tova, abundant sweetness in the year ahead. Let us take time to listen to the shofar's call, time to appreciate community and creativity and transformation, time to determine how our presence will matter in the year ahead. We celebrate all these gifts with the gift of a new year, beginning with words from the Torah on page 20. B'chodesh hashvi'i be'echad lachodesh, yeh lachem shabbaton zikron teruah mikra kodesh, kol melechet avodah lo ta'asu. In the 7th month, the first day of the month, shall be a solemn rest to you. No work be done, a memorial proclaimed with the blast of the shofar, a holy convocation. Sound the shofar on the new moon in the time appointed for our festival day. A new year, a challenge to start anew. Like the new day, dawning fresh with possibilities, cool, clear, silent in the early morn, the year stands before us all. It offers challenge, teases awareness, tests our resolve. We begin our journey this morning, challenged to start anew. As the day breaks, we can continue to retrace the paths of our yesterdays, staying with the safety and comfort of the known. We can maintain the security of the borders of our lives, attempting to assure ourselves that we can do no more. Living within the pleasures and the pain of the known seems the surest, safest security. And yet the new year presents itself. Looking ahead, we feel the excitement of challenge. We are stirred by possibilities, beckoning us to expand our limits, stretch our minds, open our hearts. The new year invites us to respond. We begin our journey this morning, stirred by possibilities. Slowly, awakening to the sounds of this day, we stretch forth our arms, our imaginings, and our hearts. Softly, we hear the whisper within us, the stirring of our souls, the words we dare not stifle. Quietly within ourselves, timidly, shyly, we explore, we notice, we nourish possibilities of growth. We begin our journey this morning, stretching forth our arms and our hearts. Calmly, we bring forth our dreams, examine them in the silent spaces of our minds, view the fragments we attempt to unite. Gently, we hold these visions in our hands, attempting to weave them into the fabric of our lives, trying out their possibilities, inhaling their promise. Finally, we allow ourselves to imagine, with tentative, hopeful song, the notes, the words, the melodies we can create. We begin our journey this morning, the opening of the new year. We sing the songs of newness, the joys of new beginnings, for that is the promise of this special day.
Bereshit, we search for beginnings, a slow surrender to timelessness. The earth, unformed and void, gives way, molten, in motion. As forms and shape appears, darkness divides, separating the day from the night. And there is evening, and there is morning. Dry land appears, sprouting vegetation, seed-bearing plants, fruits of every kind. Cells divide, multiply, assume new forms. The waters bring forth swarms of living creatures. Birds fly across the expanse of the sky. Eons pass. Life unfolds, infinite variety, forming and transforming one organic whole. In time, humans appear, struggling, finding their way, lacking the power and might of other species. They face a mysterious and threatening world. Gradually, we develop a capacity to assess, to calculate, communicate, and create, charged with a need to know and a will to thrive, balancing the force of nature with the pull of nurture. We begin a slow, persistent march. Explorers, inventors, survivors, stewards of this earth. Our survival springs from a unique and magnificent gift, a mind fueled by imagination, a heart filled with compassion, progressing towards beauty and order, honoring possibility, challenging what exists with what can be. We envision, weigh, decide, and act. We also forget. Too often we surrender these special gifts. The fire of imagination dies. The passion for conscience fades. The strength of vision is dulled by the fog of routine. Forgetting our gifts, we take timid sips from the cup of life.
But Rosh Hashanah is the season of awakening. Rosh Hashanah calls us to reject the ease of acceptance, to face our best selves. Rosh Hashanah challenges us to emerge from the mist, to be present in the world, to reclaim our gifts, to embrace the task at hand. Rosh Hashanah summons us to a new relationship between the surface self, disguised in various poses, and our inner soul, the heart of being. We peel away perspective layers, the masks we wear, and view the core of ourselves. Thus we ask, is my concern about image primary? I often strive for status, but lose authenticity. Have I defended my viewpoints merely out of a fear to admit error? The power of my pride reflects my weakness. Do I see those I dislike as less worthy than myself? My self-interest distorts my perceptions of others. Have I become absorbed in my ambitions to the detriment of those close to me? Some of what I claim as my responsibilities are merely my appetites. Have I the courage to make changes? A break in routine, a change of direction, may threaten my security. At this time of self-reflection, I stand to judgment. May the visions of our dreams and the wishes of our hearts be fulfilled. So beautiful. Our most fundamental connection with life and death remains a mystery, an invisible essence. What is incomprehensible to our reason recedes with every awkward approach. We can learn about our biology, perhaps prevent our premature demise, but the wellspring of knowledge, what is infinite, confounds investigation. Only when we join what is beyond ourselves, when we reach past our separateness, move against isolation towards what is whole, can we feel our way through the mystery. What is meaningful is our impulse towards unity, to touch and be touched, to love and be loved. What is profound is the everyday, simple, heartfelt gestures, lifting a burden with another, creating beauty and sustenance, teaching a child, an injustice addressed, a fear overcome, to grow and to persevere. There is no utopia. There's no end to human striving. We are not otherworldly. We are of this world. We now pause and continue with a silent reflection.
We're on page 26. We continue to ask ourselves, have I taken time to enjoy quiet moments, small pleasures that enrich my life? Or am I too rushed, pushing forward to some future purpose? Do I see play as an essential element among life's more serious goals? Or do I keep others at a distance and my feelings under rein? Have I allowed tears to fill my eyes? Or do I mistake vulnerability for weakness? Have I allowed myself to ask questions? Or fearing the answers, do I continually move along my life's path without examining its direction? At this time of self-reflection, I stand in judgment. We are about to begin our Torah service. For those who are comfortable rising, we rise in honor of the past and in anticipation of the future.
The Torah gives us insight into the fundamental questions asked by our ancestors, reminding us that these questions are universal. We are bound generation to generation by virtue of the search rather than the answers we uncover. Each generation is challenged to find its own meaning, its own purpose. As our ancestors sought wisdom and understanding in their age, we are inspired to do the same. They sought their own answers with sincerity of heart, integrity of mind, passion of spirit.
The Torah brings us closer to events of the distant past, making us aware of the diverse and complex history of our people. Knowing that no one document can contain all of our people's wisdom, we hold up the Torah as a symbol of our search to gain understanding. The Torah is more than words written upon the scroll. It is a symbol of the Jewish people, the Jewish experience, the pain and the joy, the sorrow and the promise. The Torah links us to past generations, calling us to assume our place in the evolution of our people.
We seek our own answers with sincerity of heart, integrity of mind, passion of spirit. We embrace the Torah with pride and awe, recognizing the responsibility we now carry. We embrace the Torah with respect for the past and a commitment to the future. May we gain insight from its words and from all sources of wisdom. May we be worthy of our task to hold our Torah with integrity and pride.
Al Shosha Devarim, Al Shosha Devarim, Al Shosha Devarim, Olam Omer. Al Shosha Devarim, Al Shosha Devarim, Al Shosha Devarim, Olam Omer. Al Torah She'ala Torah.
Rabbi Bar and I chose a Torah portion called Lech Lecha. It's the portion that we heard words from at the very beginning when Michelle sang. And it comes from very near the beginning of the Torah, which means I don't have to tell you a lot to tell you where we are. So at the beginning of the Torah, we have a bunch of stories. And when we get to Lech Lecha, we've had 2 creation stories. Cain has killed his brother Abel. We've then read, I know, lots of adventure at the beginning. Cain kills Abel. We then have 10 generations of names, a whole lot of begettings, right? Until we get to the generation of Noah. And that's when God decides humanity's evil, sends the flood, saves Noah. And then we have 10 more generations of names. Okay? And that's when we get to where we are on the cusp of Lech Lecha. And there's an issue. It seems that the flood didn't quite take care of business. Rabbi Richard Elliott Friedman says it more succinctly than I could. He says, it turns out that choosing a virtuous individual does not guarantee that that individual's descendants will be virtuous as well. Right? Another 10 generations pass, he says, and humans in general are not a planet full of Noahs. So here's the issue, right? These 10 generations have passed, but this early God of Torah, it's kind of cool and it's a subject for another time, but this early God of Torah is capable of learning, making promises, and changing God's mind. So God has already promised not to destroy humankind again. That's what came out of the flood, right? And now the author needs another strategy because we've got the same problem again. And that strategy involves this guy named Avram. You might know him as Abram, and he becomes Avraham, or Abraham. So let's read just a little tiny bit from Lech Lecha as we almost find out, you have to wait a little longer, how he's the solution to this issue. It's always hard to read from the beginning because, right? No, I'm okay, but you're always cross-armed for the beginning. It's all good. Vayomer Adonai el Avram. Then God said to Avram, Lech Lecha. We already have a problem. We'll go for now with go. You go. Me artzecha, umi moladetecha, umi beit avicha. From your land, and from your birthplace, and from your father's house, el haaretz asher arecha, to the land that I will show you. We're going to stop there, and we're going to spend most of our time, not all of it, but most of it on this very first verse. So get comfy, because we're going to spend a little time here. I said we're going to say go, you go for now. These words, lech lecha, have a strange structure. So lech means go, and I think in English it's an imperative. It's like you, go, right? So we already have it with lech. We don't need lecha. Lecha means you or for you or to you. So we can translate this go, you go, or go, you, right? If we want to be really emphatic, go, yes, you, go, right? But we can also say, go for yourself. Go for yourself, which is what the 11th century commentator Rosh thought when he said it means go yourself for your benefit and for your own good. Another commentary says it means take yourself, go forth and find your authentic self to learn what you are meant to be. Maybe this could be simply go to yourself. In other words, it doesn't have to be just about a physical move. It's a brilliantly constructed opening to a sort of Odyssey story. Avram, who becomes Abraham, right? Avram is challenged not only to physically move, but to transform himself, to do a difficult thing because it will be good for him and will be a journey of self-discovery. Happens to be a great New Year message as well. So we've covered 2 words. We've got the rest of this great verse. God said to Avram, go, we're going to say go for yourself, from your land and from your birthplace, and from your father's house, sometimes I say parents just because I like it better, right? To the land that I will show you. Aside from the maybe inconsequential fact that Avram is being ordered to leave his birthplace, and he already left it several verses ago, if we take the story in order. Aside from that, why all these words? Go from your land, from your birthplace, from your father's house. We don't need any of it. Just say go. Go. It feels like Charles Dickens being paid by the minute, by the word to me. Except here, we can learn something. And if we have English teachers, I know we can learn from Dickens too. It just occurred to me, I could be offending someone. But definitely here, we could learn from it, right? The words may appear backwards to you if you think about it. Wouldn't you leave your parents' house and then your birthplace, which may be your town, and then your land, your state, or your country? But again, it's not about physical movement. Some scholars see it as an emotional journey. And God starts with giving Avram what's viewed as the easiest task, leave your land. And then the next hardest, your birthplace, and then the hardest of all, your parents' house. By the way, in the story, his father just died in the previous verse, right? The way these rabbis interpret it, God's almost rubbing salt in a wound to show the magnitude of what's being asked. So go from your land, and wait a second, remember, that's your birthplace, right? And if that's not bad enough, that's your father's house. That's where you were raised and loved and nurtured. Leave it all. I know it's sad, leave it all and go. I'm not sure that they have the order of emotional attachment right. I don't know, but let's assume they do. I'd still rather see it as a more positive approach of easing Avram into a reality that is scary and needs time. Having just moved myself and being in the process of moving my parents, I appreciate the layers of grief that accompany the joy and excitement of change, of moving, and the need to take time to adjust in order to fully embrace what lies ahead. This list, intentionally or not, reminds us to take time to care for ourselves, especially when it's painful. There's also one more way to see it. I told you we're spending most of our time on one verse of Lech Lecha. There's also another way to see it, and that is as a developmental journey, listing first where Avram is now, and then reflecting on where he's been. We're going to flip it and start at the beginning. He starts out as a child in his parents' home. Avram leaving his parents' house, as I said, right after his father's death, means differentiating from his parents and beginning to know and to trust himself. It's adolescence and early adulthood with all of the struggles that go along with it. Only then can he let go independently of his birthplace, of the safety net of a community he knows well. In our terms, it's building up enough confidence to go to a place without your friends, where you don't know all the restaurants, and where you need a GPS again to get around. That takes a level of confidence beyond what he could have had before. And only after that growth can he dare take the responsibility for himself and for others, as we'll read, as he leaves his land for a place that's completely different. Different language, different customs, different norms, different laws, possibly different values. It's an emotional and a developmental journey toward finding something better and becoming someone wiser. Lech lecha. Go for yourself and to yourself. But it also involves leaving and loss at every step. And it takes time to adjust to that. Isn't that how we all grow? On journeys sometimes of our own choosing and sometimes thrust upon us? Growth means change. Change means loss. opening up enough space to make room for what is to come. So that's the spot we have Abraham in right now. Let's read just a little bit more. Ve'esecha legoy gadol, and I will make you a great nation. Ve'avarechecha ve'agadla shemecha ve'yeh bracha. And I will bless you, and I will make your name great. So be a blessing. Ve'avarachecha mivarchecha umkalelecha aor. And I will bless those who bless you, and those who affront you I will curse. V'nivrechu v'cha kol mishpachot ha'adama. And through you all the families of the earth will be blessed. We've got some problems here. The big one, the really big one, is the theological and moral nightmare that is chosenness, choosing Abraham and his descendants above all others. The good news is we don't have time for that one this morning. The good news for me is we don't have time for that one this morning. So we're going to ignore that piece, and instead we're going to focus for a moment on this idea of blessing. Because remember, I mentioned at the beginning that the God of Torah has already promised not to destroy humankind again, and yet needs to contend with the fact that we are messing up yet again. So we just got the new strategy. It's a little hard to see, but we just got the new strategy, and here it is. Vehiyeh bracha, be a blessing, and this part's important. V'nivrachu v'cha, and through you, all the families of the earth will be blessed. It's no longer only God who blesses. Now that job is shared with Avram and with his descendants. People can choose blessing and by extension curse. We decide. It's a profound shift. Perhaps the authors understood some of the problems with a God who determines all things. And so they declared that it is us who bring blessing into the world. Much later in Torah, in Deuteronomy, we read about myriad curses, some of them quite colorful, that we'll face if we don't follow the commandments. They include a devastated environment, a lack of prosperity, hunger, hopelessness, illness, political defeat. They're all ascribed to God, but they are things that we bring upon ourselves when we fail to act responsibly. We bring the curses, and we bring the blessings, and it's all of us. It's all people of all backgrounds based on the choices we make. Let's read just a little bit more. But if you take one thing, remember, you get to decide if you're the blessing. We'll read a little more here. Vayelech Avram ka'asher diber elav Adonai. So Avram went as God told him. Vayelech ito Lot, and Lot went with him. Va'avram ben 5 shanim v'shiv'im shana b'tzeto me Haran. And Avram was 75 years old when he went out from Haran. We can say it's never too late, right? But I forget how long he lived, but it was a really long time. So he's middle-aged probably now. Vayikach Avram et Sarai ishto ve'et Lot ben Achiv. So Avram took Sarah, his wife, and Lot, his brother's son, ve'et kol rechusham asher achashu, and all of the property that he had acquired, ve'et hanefesh asher asu b'Haran, and the souls that he had made in Haran. We don't know what that means. We're not going to worry about it. Vayetzu lalechet arza Canaan. And he went out to go to the land of Canaan. Vayavo'u arza Canaan. And he came to the land of Canaan. He was successful. Vayavor Avram ba'aretz ad makom Shechem, ad Elon Moreh. And Avram passed through the land until the place of Shechem, until the oak of Moreh. V'hakanaani az ba'aretz. And the Canaanite was then in the land. Vayera Adonai el Avram vayomer. Then God appeared to Avram and said, L'zar'acha eten et ha'aretz hazot. To your seed, to your offspring, I will give this land. Vayiven sham mizbeach ladonai hanir'eh elav. And he built there an altar to God who had appeared to him. More trouble, right? We'll leave this mostly for another time. But we have a recognition that we are entering a land that is populated. And we have the promise of taking over the land. It's a reminder that there is always a before. Here, it's the Canaanite. And before the Canaanite, it was someone else. And before someone else, it was something else. Nobody can trace themselves to the beginning of time. And most things that we gain, even if we gain them rightfully, most things that we gain involve someone else's loss. We are being painfully reminded of those truths in Israel, as two people claim to be first and too often ignore the losses inflicted upon one another. There's no first, and there are few gains without losses. It's true with land, it's true with cultures, and with wealth, and with ideas. Change happens, and we control only a small part of it, but we control what we do with it. And that brings us right back to the beginning of Lech Lecha. As the world changes around us, and we transform ourselves and our communities, may we go toward our truest selves, Lech Lecha, toward ourselves, for our benefit. And may we choose to bring blessing, Yehieh bracha, be a blessing. May we choose to bring blessing and light into the world. Ken yehi ritzonenu, may it be our will.
And we continue the service as we redress the Torah. And this is on page 28. We cover the Torah with the colors of the season and images of nature, with roots into the past and branches stretched forward to tomorrow. We adorn our scrolls. May the work of our hands be woven into the tapestry of time.
This backwards, I need to hold.
Hillel said, "What is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor." That is the whole Torah. The rest is commentary. Go study. Please be seated. So, for those of you who've been around Beth Adam, you've probably seen my timeline of Jewish history. Rabbi Werber, I left that for you among the many things I left in my office. I left it in there along with a lot of other important things that you should never throw away. And you should never give back to me either. That's the more important thing. Okay, I digressed, which I've never done before. That was the first time in 44 years. So, I was talking about that timeline, right? So if you've never seen the timeline, which is backwards, don't worry about that. If you've never seen the timeline, don't worry. It is a very long sheet of butcher block paper upon which is written different events in Jewish history, different people, different moments in time, different epochs, different eons, different eras, all there, about 1,000-ish years. And I've used it over the years as a visual aid. I thought it was an easy way to teach Jewish history. It helped point out, you could see like the period of the patriarchs moving into the period of the prophets and seeing the prophets sort of fade away as the kings and the priests take over. So it was a way to teach and point out things and juxtaposition of different ideas. But it's a timeline, and it's only about 13 feet long. And Jewish history on that timeline is about 1,000 years. So what that means is hundreds of years are just a couple inches. Big moments in time are 2-3 inches wide. So it's a condensed version of Jewish history on this timeline. Now, we study Jewish history here at Beth Adam not as an academic exercise, but rather it is to ensure that we have an accurate understanding of the evolution of our people and our history, rather than a mythic history that is frequently taught and tries to shape the events of the past in an effort to shape the future. George Orwell, in his book, 1984, talks about this very specifically. Orwell recognized, and this is his quote, "Those who control the present control the past, and those who control the past control the future." Those who control the present control the past. Those who control the past control the future. So at Beth Adam, we learn about the past in order that we can become creators of a bold and dynamic Jewish future. Now, learning Jewish history sometimes means we have to unlearn what we learned as kids, right? We had well-meaning rabbis and grandparents and religious school teachers who filled us with all kinds of stories and myths that weren't quite true, weren't quite accurate, weren't quite historical realities, but they did that in an effort to shape the past so that they can control the future. So we have to relearn historic realities. The other problem about learning Jewish history is that we teach it in broad strokes, really wide arcs of what happened. We can't get into the detail. There is no way really to understand hundreds of years of Jewish history in great detail. In order to study it in detail, it would take hundreds of years, right? Just the best map of the world is the size of the world, right? Studying thus means we leave lots of things out. That's the only way to do it. So we look at it, big ideas, big changes, sweeping and overarching principles. And what oftentimes happens is we don't see the clash of ideas that took place as one historic reality gives way to another one. We lose the nuance, the struggles that necessarily occurred as ideas and society shifted. We miss the messiness when new values and principles clash with the old, and those in power see their authority being limited or being taken from them. We don't see the chaos. We don't feel the anger, the uncertainty as factions clash with one another in an effort to survive the change. When we read the Torah, we can see clashes that take place, groups vying for power, for wealth, prestige, and authority. It's all there when we read. But that clash doesn't end with the end of the Torah. There's the clash of the past and the future is ignited many times throughout Jewish history. One of my favorite moments is when the Second Temple is destroyed. The Second Temple, that's where the sacrificial cult took place, where we, as a Jewish community, we sacrificed animals, and the temple was destroyed in 70 CE by the Romans. And theoretically, Judaism should have ceased to exist. There was no form of Judaism that existed without killing sheep and turtle doves and goats. But there was this new group rising up, Rabbinic Judaism, and they had this new crazy idea. They said, we can be Jewish and we don't have to kill animals anymore. And the animal killers are going, what are you talking about? That's not my grandparents' Judaism. We got to do what they used to do. And this new group, Rabbinic Judaism, came along. And there was a fight between those two groups. Now, I just want to make a notion. There are people today who want to bring the sacrificial cult back. There is a whole movement right now among certain ultra-Orthodox Jews who want to do that. That is a problem and a conversation for another day. I have no doubt, as Rabbinic Judaism was rising up, there were those who were going, this isn't tradition, this is new, this is modern, it's bad. But that new, inauthentic Judaism becomes the Judaism that we know. That's the nature of progress. It pushes against established practices and realigns what's happening, and then we know it as it is. But it's more than just practice and ritual that's changed. It's also ideas and principles. It's about authority. It's about who gets to decide how we live and what we do. Ideas and principles form the framework upon which social structure hangs. So this period of change, this evolution of change continues, and we go to Spinoza as being a clear and obvious moment and person who challenged authority once more. He challenged religious authority, and in fact, he challenged secular authority through his theology. His theology was of a non-interventionist God, a theology that could not accept the notion of miracles. He said their miracles in the Bibles were stories that were made up that could never have existed. He didn't believe in a God that handed down dictates or rules. He was a pantheist. They said he was both an atheist and God intoxicated. But the worst thing he did was he undermined authority. Because he said authority no longer resided in those who cited the Bible. And what was his reward? He was excommunicated because of his ideas, because he challenged and undermined religious and political authority of his day. But even though he could be cast aside, he could be punished, he could be excommunicated, not being allowed to be buried in a Jewish cemetery, still his bones are found in a church courtyard in The Hague. His ideas couldn't be eradicated, his ideas weren't erased, they couldn't be denied. And his thinking brought on a totally new way to see the world. A world no longer defined by dogma, no longer defined by superstition, but he championed rational thought and inquiry. And slowly, his ideas seeped into mainstream culture. It moved into religion, and it moved into society as a whole. But I do want to acknowledge that not all societies have embraced Spinoza. They have not embraced modernity. And there are factions within religion, including Judaism, that have not accepted his ideas of rational thought and inquiry. But he helped to bring on the Enlightenment. His ideas so changed the way people thought. He literally changed the way society as a whole was thinking. The Enlightenment came up. He helped to create ideas that form the basis of our U.S. Constitution. And I'm sharing this today, this whole conversation about history, because so often we think of history as being fixed and done. That once we've moved in a direction, we've moved forward, we've been granted rights, we've come up with new ideas, they can never be lost. But that's not true. Human progress is not like concrete, that once it's poured, it hardens, and it stays the same and fixed forever. Human progress is malleable, it's flexible. It can move forward, and it can move back. When we learn about history, Jewish or otherwise, we think that it's all happened. It's still going on. It's still evolving. We are creating history even as we sit here, even as we interact. In 100 years or less, I would posit to you that students and historians will be studying this moment in time. They're going to be trying to figure out what happened. They're going to be trying to understand the conflicts, the tensions, the clash of ideas, what was going on in this moment, a moment that we are witnesses to and we are participants in. Today, we need to think of ourselves not as students of histories, we need to see ourselves as actors in history. And we need to consider what our descendants are going to think of us. How are we going to be judged by those who inherit what we have left? I would suggest to you that that we are in a moment of intense conflict between competing ideologies, just like our ancestors were, just like they were in the Torah, just like they were when the temple was destroyed, just like they were when Spinoza was giving new ideas. We are at a moment when ideas are clashing with one another. There's intense pressure, and the direction of society hangs in the balance like it did for them and it did for us. Now, be clear. I'm not speaking about partisan politics, though everything becomes partisan politics this time of year. It's not about partisan politics. What we are witnessing to and watching take place is a conflict between opposing worldviews that are tugging at one another. And it's not just happening in America. It's happening all over. We see it in Israel. We see it across the world. We see it within religion. We see it within Judaism. It's a clash of worldviews. But I'm focused today on America. It's a clash of worldviews that is taking place. Which worldview will serve as the foundation of how our nation moves forward? It's a clash between the pre-modern, the world before Spinoza, and the world after Spinoza. That's what we're watching debated. Somehow we think the Enlightenment came, it changed the world, and it was done. The fight over the Enlightenment is taking place even as we speak. There are forces that want to repeal it, if you will, turn it back. They are religious. They are political. They are ideological. They don't always agree with each other, but they all have a desire to reject that notion of modernity that was so important for us to become the nation that we know. There are those who want to erode, destroy the wall between the separation of church and state. But more than that, we talk about that as sort of a political idea. I want you to consider it today as a deeply religious, philosophic idea. What do they want? They want God's word to define how we live. They want religion to dictate how we live. They want religious ideology, religious strictures, religious dictates to define our nation, just like it did before Spinoza. They believe that religion is better than secular thought. They think there should be the voice of God speaking, not the voice of people who should determine what we get to do, what we get to have, and how we get to live. And of course, those who posit this say it's their religion and their God and the way they understand it. They don't waver from that. They just say they are right, and that's what needs to happen. And that erosion of separation of church and state, that notion, that pre-modern notion that religion dictates how we live, also says that human individuals, that individual rights, individual freedoms no longer exist. That's the implication. If religion dictates, we do not have a choice. We give up our individual freedom, the right for an individual to make his choice or her choices. Those who want to pull back to that time say that there is a greater authority that exists. God, religion, state. It has the power to limit and restrict individual freedoms. Individual rights that people should have a choice should no longer exist. That idea emanates from the Enlightenment. That's where it came from. It's embedded in the very foundation of our nation that we're all equal, that we have the right to determine who is going to govern us. They want to reject that. They want to go back to a world where we don't have rights. They reject science. Spinoza brought on science. Before Spinoza, truth was found in the Bible. And today there are still people who hold that. Any idea that you come up with that is not found in the Bible cannot be true by definition. So we see attacks on science all the time. An idea championed by Spinoza that the best way to discover truth was through scientific discovery. So we see it being attacked, whether it's medical research. We saw it during COVID, certainly. We see it around vaccinations. We see it happening around climate change. We see it happening around teaching of evolution, something so basic. The attacks of science is about a rejection of modernity. That rejection of modern thought, the rejection of the idea that an individual has the right to make decisions about themselves, can be seen on the attacks on women. The right of women to control their own bodies. We all assumed it was a settled matter. 50 years? Half a century? Some people in this room never knowing anything but that reality? It gets turned back. That's the point. History isn't fixed. And there were people who rejected that idea 40 years ago, and they started working. They said that can't be the way it is because we don't allow it. Not we don't allow it, God doesn't allow it. So they figured out a way to move back from that. But more than that, they are arguing about issues about when does life begin? And when life begins, change the entire moral equation between a woman and a fetus. It has implications for reproductive health. It has implications for fertility. It has implications about contraception. It has implications about the legal right of a woman to make choices when she is pregnant about what she's allowed to do. Philosophic ideas, religious ideas, have practical implications on the way they live. They change the moral landscape, and they are intertwined, and they are complicated, but they want to pull us to a place where those choices are no longer human conversations, human decisions, human struggles. They are divine, and they are going to tell us what to do. Those people who are attacking women's rights are also attacking divorce, because they're related. It's about not having a choice. They think that no-fault divorce has gone too far, and that a woman shouldn't have the right simply to leave a marriage because it's not good. Why? Because in the ancient text, that was true. They want to replicate what existed before. All these ideas that we have come to know and celebrate are ideas that were brought on by Spinoza. They claim society will be better if we go back to a society that used to exist. Restrictions of same-sex marriage come out of that same notion. Even the notion of democracy. The notion of democracy is under attack. Democracy springs from the idea that we get to decide. We the people. We get to choose. That's democracy. When you supplant fundamentalist religion, when you supplant pre-modern thinking before Spinoza, democracy goes away. It didn't exist before. Why didn't it exist before? Because intellectually it couldn't have existed. There wasn't a moral foundation for that. I would suggest that the rise of anti-Semitism comes out of that pre-modern world, because the other is always worse in a world that isn't defined. And we are seeing it all the time. Rabbi Werber spoke about that rise last night. The attacks of modernity are real. They're growing. They're making headway. And we need to look around. And there's a problem, because so many of us grew up with the words of Martin Luther King echoing in our head. We grew up with the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. We heard it so often. So many of us began to think of it as a law of nature rather than a function of human action. We came to think of it as inevitable, that justice would always prevail, that evil would be defeated, that equality would reign, that we would all have the ability to live the lives of our own choosing, because we learned it. The arc of moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. King didn't mean it was a law of nature. He didn't live a life like that. He recognized that everything he did, he fought for and spoke about. We push the arc. It won't magically appear. It doesn't simply incline towards justice. It is pushed towards justice by people who believe that. He fought for that. He died for that. We have to work for it. At Beth Adam, we have never taught magical thinking. We don't imagine that some divine hand is out there in charge of everything, making sure it's all going to work out perfectly, making sure our values are going to be realized, making sure that everyone has the right to live the life of his or her own choosing. We here at Beth Adam, we have taught that what happens is a result of human action and the result of human inaction. So at this moment in history, a moment that we are not just witnessing, but we are participants in, we have to act. But no one action will end this, will resolve the problem. This is not something simple. It will require all of us involved in many, many ways. This time of year, we think about voting. Voting is important. We did some research about voting. Lots of young people don't think it matters anymore. That it doesn't matter who's there. We're giving up on democracy itself. when we say it doesn't. When our founders wrote, "We the people," they conceived of something that no one in the history of humankind had ever thought of before. That people, we get to decide. There was a time the Jewish community used to dress up to go vote. It was an honor. We recognize it because America was the first place in history that we could be full and equal citizens. We should celebrate voting. We should be involved, engaged in that, and not just every 4 years or every 2 years. There are lots of places to vote and to be involved and be engaged. We cannot abdicate our responsibility. We cannot simply say it doesn't matter. My vote, it doesn't count. It's about the act of being engaged. It's about the recognition that we as human beings have a responsibility to do. But voting doesn't solve all the problems. It doesn't end the conflict. It doesn't mean that there won't be people working to change the society in which we live even after elections take place. We have to work and support organizations that value modernity. Pick something or two, an organization that values modernity. You can be working about separation of church and state or equal rights or women's rights or LGBTQ rights. You can be talking about education where we teach people to think. Scientific inquiry, working for organizations that work for democracy. Read the websites. Democracy is on the decline worldwide. Be involved. Support organizations that support modernity. Support Bethadon. Because our philosophic approach, what we have been doing, what we have been engaged in for 40 plus years, is celebrating the ideas of modernity, what Spinoza taught us. We've embedded it into our liturgy. We've made it part of our services. We talk about rational thought as inquiry and human action as the way the world gets better. Your involvement here speaks to those ideas. It needs to be said. This is how society, this is how we move forward, civilization. If we want the arc of the moral universe to bend towards justice, if we want the march of progress to continue to modernity, if we want people to have self-determination, then we must do the work. We must see ourselves not as witnesses to history, we must see ourselves as participants.
Page 29. When so many know hunger, when so many know suffering, it is hard to savor our portion. When so many know pain, when so many know oppression, it is hard to enjoy our freedom. When violence shatters the stillness, when prejudice stands for reason, it is hard to believe in fairness. When anger is rampant, when envy is strong, it is hard to feel at peace. When there is torment in our hearts, when there is confusion in our souls, it is hard to dream of a better world. Yet we must resist the temptation to succumb to despair. We cannot allow the harshness of our time to diminish our dream. For as our ancestors taught us in the book of Proverbs long ago, Ve'ein chazon yipara am, where there is no vision, a people perish.
Though the words of our ancestors have echoed for generations, Their vision of a better world must infuse our actions, stir our passions, encourage our hearts. We must strive to attain the passion of Amos. V'igal kamayim mishpat utzedakah nachal etan. Let justice roll down like water, and righteousness flow like a mighty river. As we sound our shofar, we allow its ancient sounds to awaken us to a dream that is not lost, but yet to be realized. Sound the shofar loud in the 7th month. On Rosh Hashanah, sound the shofar throughout the land and proclaim liberty to all that dwell therein. And together we will say the sounds Tekiah, Shefarim, Teruah, Tekiah, Shefarim, Shefarim. I'm sorry, Shefarim. It's my fault. Tekiah. Tekiah. It's my. There you are. Right there. Tekiah. There you are. Right there. Tekiah. Tekiah. Shefarim. Tekiah. Okay.
The sound of the shofar awakens us to the world in which we live.
The blast of the shofar is a call to action, challenging us to resist evil,
To strive for justice, to bring peace. May our ears not be closed to the sound of the shofar and the challenge it presents.
Tekiah, Shefarim, Teruah, Tekiah, Tekiah, Teruah, Tekiah, Tekiah, Teruah. Tekiah. Wait, no, you got one more to go.
The sound of the shofar awakens us from the trance of indifference. The blast of the shofar reverberates through the walls of our complacency, shattering our unwarranted fears, sustaining our frustrated hopes, challenging dormant dreams. The blast of the shofar is our call to action. It moves us to stretch beyond our past. May our ears not be closed to the sound of the shofar and the challenge it presents.
Tekiah, Shefarim, Teruah, Tekiah, Tekiah, Shefarim, Tekiah, Tekiah, Teruah. Tekiah Gedolah. Thank you.
Thank you so much for gifting us with shofar blowing. Was it how many years straight? The whole thing, right? 44 years straight. Amazing. I said, did you miss one? He said, no. So thank you so very much. 44. One of my favorite commentaries on shofar is that we have broken sounds and we have whole sounds. So as we just heard, we heard the teruah, it was just broken, right? And the shavarim, right? And then Tekiah and Tekiah Godola being these whole notes reminding us that we're broken now. We're always broken, but we can always be whole. And we're some of each really mixed up together. So thanks for bringing a little wholeness with the end of the shofar, with the Tekiah Godola. Though we are many, let us speak with one voice. Though our paths are diverse, let us stand united. Our bond is our strength. V'nit chazech l'dor vador. Today we offer a dream of peace. Today we speak to one purpose, to seek justice and harmony. Our vision is our strength. V'nit chazech l'dor vador. May we stand with resolve, ready to do our share. May we rise to the task at hand, for together we can prevail. Our commitment is our strength. V'nit chazech l'dor vador. Though our numbers may be few, our impact can be great. May we honor knowledge, dispel superstition. May we promote understanding, diminish pain. Our conviction is our strength. V'nit chazech l'dor vador. Each of us shares the responsibility. Each of us leaves a legacy. We can feed the hungry, stay the terror. We can work to find a way. Our humanity is our strength. V'nit chazek l'dor vador. We may not succeed, but we will not fail. By uniting, we find our strength. V'nit chazek l'dor vador. It's a perfect reflection for after your sermon. So thank you for sharing your words and then having a reminder of what that means we are responsible for. To every beginning, there comes an end. Today, we celebrate a beginning while realizing that this new year, too, will end. So it is with life. Every living being yields to death. It is inescapable. An end that must come because there was once a beginning. Today, at this season of beginnings, we also recall our endings. Those of our loved ones, our family, our friends, those who influenced our lives yet are no longer among the living. We shared much with them. We learned from them. We loved them. As we embark on this new year, may these memories strengthen us and give us courage. For those who wish to rise, we rise for our memorial. We remember those in our families and our friends who we have loved and lost, all of our loved ones. We remember those who have been taken from us through violence and terror throughout the world, and those who have died in the fight for freedom and for better days for themselves and for others. And we remember those who have only us to say a memorial for them. Ein bidei hamavet hakoach la'korma shetamun balev. Death cannot take that which is locked in our hearts. With our tears and our sorrow, we remember. With our courage and our strength, we do not forget. Acts of kindness, deeds of courage will remain. Beauty created, wisdom shared is not lost. With our tears and our sorrow, we remember. Im dma'ot beinenu, be'et evlenu, nishmor al zecher ahuvenu. With our tears and our sorrow, we remember. We continue in silence. After that, we will hear from Martha Keene with some words of wisdom and some announcements. First, some moments of reflection.
And we continue on page 36. Finally, we ask ourselves, do I give of my possessions, but rarely of myself? My true values are reflected in my choices. Do I strive for the well-being of my person, my family, my nation, my world? The range of my boundaries reflects the depth of my spirit. At this time of self-reflection, I stand in judgment. One year ends, and another begins, and we are mindful that we are creatures of time. Each year, each day is precious beyond compare, for it cannot be relived. May the new year find us keenly aware of its priceless possibilities. May the strength and courage displayed in every victory of the human spirit be fuel to us. For we too are offspring of that long ago beginning. We too carry the seeds of tenacity, perseverance, and creativity. It is incumbent upon us to use our gifts that we may be worthy of our heritage.
Good morning, everybody, and Shana Tova. I am Martha Keene. I am the Vice President of the Board of Beth Adam. Welcome to all of you, both here in person and online. So I grew up here, and when I was little, when this person came up to speak, I knew we were almost done. And the food was not far behind. So speaking of food, we do have an oneg after this service. It will be back outside. It will be in our great space. So we invite you to join us for that. We also have a food drive during the high holidays. We will take donations through the morning Yom Kippur service, and that is done by our B'nai Mitzvah class. We also have a celebration of welcome for Rabbi Werber on November 15th at 7:30. We hope you can join us for that, and if you can, please RSVP to Melissa Weiss.
Thanks, Martha. So food is like right there. We're gonna sing first. You have to sing for your food. You ever hear that? It's an old expression. Some of you remembered it. So we're gonna go out the side. We go out the side doors and onto the great space, and we can be outside and nosh and talk out there. For those who wish, please rise for our closing. This is a responsive singing. Choir sings and then we answer. And really, I want you to really sing loudly. I told Rabbi Werber when she started how engaged our congregation was and how they sing. And she said, I will only take the position if it's true. So, she has a 60-day rescind clause if you don't sing up. So this is up to you. You have to be involved and you have to be engaged.
May it be a year of
Every year we sing those words, and we hope that they are realized. Certainly this year, these words, may it be a good year, a healthy year, a year of peace, a good year for all the people of Israel, for all the people everywhere throughout the world. We want those words to be realized soon, so that the world that we dream of is the world in which we live. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.